Hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there listening to this podcast, and just a happy Sunday to everyone else. This is the I Got So and So in Stereo podcast. We are back with another episode. Kyle's here. I'm talking in third person. I'm here with Tom and Ed. What's going on, guys?
This dude thinks he's Dwayne Johnson. The Kyle is here. Calm down.
Tom, what's going on?
Man, I saw this article I wanted to bring up before we begin. Bow Wow was chased back to his hotel the other day. It reminded me of a story that Ed told us once about when he was at a speaking engagement one time, and when he left the venue, he got chased back to his hotel. For those who don't know, Ed's a minor celebrity and journalist, so...
Well, if I was chased back to my hotel, I'm sure it was from psychotic Mary J fans angry that I gave her album 4 stars instead of 40 stars. So that's the only people who stays in my mentions. Oh, and those Tay Martians too, but we'll wait until her album drops before I get their wrath.
Man, I can't wait till that happens. But until then, we actually have some new music that came out for once this week or this past week. Guys, R&B is back. Isn't that right, Tom?
Oh my goodness,
man. Well,
let me tell you why. Well, let me tell you why R&B is back, Tom. Omarion put out a classic R&B song, and when I say classic, I mean classic. Please tell him what song he put out.
Reasons, a cover of Earth, Wind & Fire, but did you see the comments by our readers? A few of them were afraid to even listen to it.
Oh boy. And I listened to it, so I can speak on behalf of them. But before I go in, Kyle, please rescue your boy O.
Well, let me tell you this, okay? So, the reason, that's funny I'm saying reason, but the reason why he put out this song was because his album Reasons was supposed to come out last week. But, as usual, his album got pushed back, and he had no new music for the fans. So he decided, you know what, let me just grab this classic Earth, Wind & Fire track, cover it, and just put it out. He also did a music video for it, which was kind of neat. And when Tom told me, he's like, yo, Omarion covered the Earth, Wind & Fire song. I'm like, let me guess, he trapped it out, and it's all that, and it's everything that it's not supposed to be. And Tom's like, no, he just straight up covered the song. So I was like, okay, cool, that sounds kind of dope. But then I was like, wait, it's Omarion, and he's not exactly prime-time vocalist. So I'm like, I don't want to listen to this. And I listened to it, and yeah. Ed?
Oh, player, listen. I will say that when I first heard the song, or heard of the song, I was kind of like you were. I was like, please, please, please don't trap out one of the greatest songs ever recorded. We cannot do this. Like, R&B cannot have this. This will not stand on my watch. But he sang it just straight. And while it was better than I thought it was going to be, it was still Omarion singing Earth, Wind & Fire. And this brother is no Maurice White, player. That falsetto was drier than Tom's chicken. Oh my god.
Don't bring my chicken into this.
And your chicken is fine. Omarion is not. I mean, and on one hand, I applaud him for, we talk all the time on this podcast about younger artists doing their best to keep the classic foundation of R&B alive. And that is what I think he was trying to do here. But you gotta have the skills to back it up, player. I need vocals, not hopefuls on this thing. It sounds like your little cousin just singing karaoke. Like they're playing Reasons at the cookout, and your cousin just starts singing along with the. It's just that. It is not a professional release. It ain't good.
Well, I actually didn't mind it. I didn't expect greatness, but here's the thing. To me, it's just confusing because, first of all, Ed, he's not really the younger generation. He's over 30 now. But I know what you mean. But the thing is, it's like confusing to his fans, isn't he? He's putting out turn-up songs. His last single was reggae-themed or whatever it was, and now it's like, I'm gonna start singing a classic R&B song. Do his fans even want to hear that from him?
I bet they don't. I bet half of them haven't even heard of the song.
Exactly. It's just weird
You know
to
what
me.
though? I didn't even know Omarion had a falsetto. I started thinking back. I'm like, I've never heard Omarion sing like this before, because in all of his solo
And you
stuff,
see
even
why.
it's always that one tone that he has, and he tried to go out of his comfort zone this time and didn't really work out too well. But I'm with you, Ed. I actually am happy that he embraced the legends before him, and he tried something. I'm sure he just did it for fun, but it was kind of cool to see that there's still artists out here who know what came before them, and even if it didn't successfully work out in terms of his cover, you got to give him some props for trying.
No, and I do that. And I will say there were times where he slipped in his normal Omarion tone, and he didn't sound bad singing that. But it was when he hit the falsetto is when he started trying to mimic the original song, and there is no way. When you mimic the same vocals from the original recording, and I talked about this 1,000 times, and nobody listens to me. But when you mimic it, all you do is remind people of what the original song sound like. And there's no way that you can measure up. Nobody can measure up to the greatness of that song. If he had kept his own tone, maybe it would have worked a little bit better. But if you coming off like a bootleg Maurice White, it's going to sound cheap.
Speaking of legends, another legend put out a new single early last week with B. Slade, and that is Shaka Khan. Ed, you love Shaka Khan, don't you?
I do, and I haven't heard this song yet. You mentioned it to me right before the podcast, and it slipped my mind, and I feel I had to go back and look. So I'm very interested in hearing how this one turned out.
Well, the song actually has a really positive message in the video. She even tapped to fans to cover it, and she's going to include their stories in the video, I guess. It's pretty cool. It touches on some social issues, so it was cool to see her do that.
Yep, and then
Shout out
from
to Shaka, still doing the thing.
legendary artists, and from one legendary artist to another, my boy Mario put out his 11th first single for his new project, which is now titled Cosmo 17. Man, the guy announces he's going to put out a project, puts out a single, scraps it, and rinse and repeat like 30 times in a row. And this new song is called Pain is the New Pleasure. And let me just tell you, it's like Mario that I've never heard before. I don't even know if it's an R&B song. I don't even know what it is.
I don't either. Now, this song I did hear, and here's the problem with this song. The message is actually, I see where he was going with the message. He tried to kind of weave kind of a little bit of social commentary in there, but he did it like kind of subtly, so it wasn't like hitting you over the head and being preachy. That part was good. But it's just yet another artist that's just kind of bowing to this trap and B trend, if you want to call it that. This R and bass or whatever you want to make of it. And it just doesn't work for his vocals. It doesn't mesh up well. Like, this is a guy we know can sing and know can belt out. And it seems like he's actually holding back just so he can do this rappy stuff over the beat. It's just unnecessary.
What was interesting to me is when I saw the title, I was like, this guy must be suicidal or something. Pain is the new pleasure? That doesn't sound good. I was like, someone go check on Mario. Jeez.
Well, Tom, his mom just passed away not too long ago, so...
I mean, I didn't know that. I just saw the title, and I just assumed the worst, but I'm glad he's okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the song talks about a lot of not only his pain, but some stuff that's going on nationwide. And again, it's a good concept. It is, again, the delivery that's jacked up. And I don't understand why artists... Look, a Bryson Tiller, when your vocals are on E, okay, I can see you trying to do this stuff, but when we have artists who can actually sing, why do you have to do this? You don't have to do this. You are at the pinnacle. Like, let loose. Don't hold back.
You know what, though? This song didn't really come off to me as like a trappy type of song. It kind of came off as like an alternative. I want to say even like what Miguel tried to do on his last album. I mean, I think some of Miguel's stuff in terms of quality was way better than this, but I wasn't too opposed of the sound that he was going for. I think it was just the execution. It didn't really work for me.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's more, and again, it's not a trap song per se, but his delivery of his vocals, like the way he delivers the verses, those sound like the arrangements that a Bryson Tiller or whoever would quote unquote sing, and that's
Yep.
what bothered me more than anything.
So Mario's new EP or new album, I'm not sure what he's gonna do with this. Cosmos 17 is set to come out in the fall, but knowing that it's Mario, it might not come out. But if it is to
Cosmo
come out,
17.
it will probably be in 2017, which is I think what the 17 represents in the title. But it could be Cosmo 18 if it gets pushed back.
Yes, the
now-
original title was Cosmo 11, and it's
Oh, jeez.
Now we're talking about all this trap stuff and people having great vocals, and it's time to bring them back up. The R&B general Tank is back with his new song "When We," and then I think he says the F word after that. But Tank is back with his new single, with a new album to follow later this year, "Savage," which seems to be like the most popular word
It's
on
called
the internet
Savage?
these
I
days.
didn't see that.
Yeah, it's called Savage.
Okay. I'll tell you what, guys. Every time Tank has a new single out, and I told Kyle this, I get excited. Only because I'm just waiting for him to recapture that past glory that we know he's capable of, and I know it's coming at some point. Maybe it's not, but I just didn't want him to go in the sound again, and he did.
Look, player, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and you can direct all comments to E.T. Bowser on Twitter. These comments are the property of Edward T. Bowser and not You Know I Got Soul. So here goes. Sorry, Tom, because you're going to give me a scolding. Listen, I love Tank. I have loved Tank for years. But like Tom, every song that comes out, I keep hoping we get classic Tank. And how long has it been since we've gotten classic Tank? Like, I feel like we're going on a decade now. Like, it's been a long time since I've had a Tank project that I love. Not just one or two okay songs here or there. And this song drives me nuts because if you listen to it, he sounds great. But the vocals are horrendous. I'm like, dude, you about 40. You cannot be writing songs that sound like a 22-year-old. It sounds like what's his name? The ear drummers, the guys that do all the goofy Beyonce songs and the Uzi Verts. Like, the lyrics are just so crass and juvenile. It just doesn't do anything for me. And even though the arrangement is good, the vocals are good, it's yet again another artist who we demand more of, just doing what everybody else is doing. And I hold a Tank to a higher level than that. So you got to come harder with this. And with the project called Savage, I think we're going to get more of the same of this. So I want the old Tank, but I think old Tank might be gone Tank. Tank is on E for Tank.
The thing I find most annoying is on his Instagram when he posted this song, and I think it happens a lot now in R&B. They'll release a trap song, but the caption will be something like, "This is what you've been missing, that real R&B." I'm like, all right, I think we're onto something here. And I remember when this song was about to come out, I think Tom was like, "Hey, the song is called When We. That can't be a trappy, trendy song, right?" And then we listened to it, and it is a trendy, trappy song. So false advertisement is not good, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't do that.
No. And again, like, this song is a perfectly solid song. It's not even, like, the beat is great. He sounds great. But the lyrics are just so... I'm not even going to repeat them because I'm a grown man. And it's like, come on, y'all. I know that every artist, and we've talked about this 1,000 times, every artist wants to sell. And they want to get on mainstream playlists. And they got to kind of do what's mainstream. And unfortunately, that is controlled by the youngins. But I don't want my veterans sounding like 15-year-olds. It's not going to play for your audience. They're going to be like, I'm not dealing with this. And it is turning me off and making me just want to put on the original Sex, Love, and Bang, because that's the only way I can hear the Tank that I want to hear.
So you're telling me if you call something real R&B, even if it's not, I mean, it doesn't count?
Nope.
Funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Well,
We got a couple more. Man, this was a pretty heavy week for R&B, so we have a lot to talk about. We have another artist Tammy Rivera, who I did not know existed until a week ago, and I think Tom can say that as well. Ed, I think you do watch those Love and Hip Hop shows.
Player, please, you gonna watch these hands. I only know of these people because their names infest my Twitter and Facebook all the time, so I know of them. I've watched that show literally like twice.
Well, this Tammy Rivera singer, I was looking at the iTunes chart, and her new single like charted to like #1 instantly, and I was like, who the heck is this? And then I saw Rico Love promoting it on his Instagram, so I'm like, okay, well, Rico has something to do with this. Let me take a listen, because he can write some decent songs. And I listened to it, and you know what? It sounds pretty good. I mean, it is an actual traditional R&B song. Kind of reminds me of Monica in a way, but it was a pretty good listen. Did you guys get a chance to listen to it?
I actually have not yet. You told me you noticed it was on it was charting, right?
Yeah.
And that was pretty interesting that a song by someone, Rico Love, we're a big supporter of, kind of came out, flew under the radar. But the thing is, for me, when I hear of a reality star putting out a single, I usually assume it's going to be trendy and it's just not going to be for us. So I was a little surprised to hear you say it was pretty good. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I've yet to hear it too. I think, isn't she? I mean, she's on Love and Hip Hop, so I'm assuming she's with some rapper. I think she's with Waka Flocka. She's with one of them.
That's correct. Like. She is Miss
Waka
Flocka.
Miss Waka Flocka. Anyway, I'll pray for you. But the thing is, a lot of, kind of like Tom says, and it's a little unfair when we see kind of artists that we haven't heard of and we only know through reality TV shoot through the top of the charts. It's not surprising, because that is how you promote yourself these days. It's not, there's no 106 in Park to run to or Video Soul. You get a reality show, and that's the best way to build your brand. Then when you come out, you have a fan base. You can come out with any old song, and everybody's going to copy it because they're fans of Tammy. And I don't know Tammy at all. I don't know this song, so I can't weigh on it one way or another. But I think that what you're seeing, you're going to see more of this, where artists build their brand. We see it on social media. We're going to see it on TV, where instead of going and sitting on the couch and dropping your new video with AJ and Free and calling to the show and getting on the countdown, you just have a TV show, and then we get to know you through your crazy, zany antics, and then you drop a little single, and everybody cops it because they're your fans. So it's weird, but that's where we are in 2017.
I'm trying to think right now, I mean, I hope this doesn't come off as offensive, but is K Michelle the only R&B act that has like made a singing career off of the success of the reality TV shows?
Well, please, Tamar.
Well, I mean, Tamar was, I guess she wasn't popular back in the day, but she already had a career.
Oh, no. Trust me, player. I mean, you can rewrite history all you want. I was around when Tamar first dropped and when the Braxtons first dropped. Nobody was checking for them. It wasn't until the reality show and she got to do her Bomb.com ratchet stuff that she gained a following. And then when she gained a following, she could put out music because she had a built-in fan base. You could never question her ability. She could always sing. But it was just, she was always casted as the other Braxton, and she didn't have her own identity until she made it on reality TV. And she had this other identity, and she can release her stuff. We saw the same with K Michelle. So that's the way artists are doing it these days.
It's interesting. I was thinking about that recently. R&B divas and all the seasons they had. I feel like it should have done a lot more than it did for those artists, but I feel like it was partially the artist's fault. Like, did anyone actually have projects lined up that they were ready to promote while the show was still on the air? I feel like they lost the momentum because they didn't.
Some did. I was a big fan of that show. I don't watch too much reality TV, but I like that one. And I remember Shantae Moore's album coming out around that time, and her album was pretty decent. I can't remember because Kiki was the breakout star of that show, and I just knew. I was like, this is what's going to make Kiki the mega star that she should be. And I don't remember, she had an EP that came out, but I don't remember her releasing anything major, and I thought that was a gigantic mistake.
Yeah.
And I think Selena Johnson's album dropped during that time. Her album was really good too, but I really thought Kiki dropped the ball because she should have been massive on that show.
And somewhere Claudette Ortiz is crying. So,
Man, just imagine though, if she had an album out at the time the show started, people could have, every time her name came up, oh wow, she has an album out, let me go get that. But she doesn't have an album out. She never had an album out, and unfortunately might never will have an album out.
Claudette still looks good though, so shout outs to Claudette.
Oh boy.
Lord.
Now, back to Tammy Rivera. It got me to thinking. Rico Love's executive producing that project, and Tammy's having all sorts of success with her single. We also got to give a quick shout out to Tierra Marie, who was Rico's last artist, and now she's not able to have a career either because, well, she just isn't. So, shout outs to Tierra Marie as well.
What do you mean?
That's the most awkward shout out I've ever heard. Claire.
Not able to have a career? She can have one if she so chooses. I mean, I don't know what she's doing.
I guess.
Has she done anything besides the last thing I remember was that sponsor song, which is horrible? But like, has she done anything since then?
Yeah, she had a single with Rico, I think, back in. Ooh, this was 2011. She was signed to Rico's Division 1 label.
That might have been around the time that sponsor song.
Yeah, it was around that same period. Yeah. So shouts to Tierra Marie. And the last project that came out, and this is one that Ed and I were very excited about. Tom, not so much, but our boy Gaetano has proclaimed this as one of the top 3 R&B albums of the year, and that is Her Volume 2. Ed, I know we loved Volume 1. Is Volume 2 just as good?
I was shout out my boy Gaetano. I love him to death, but I think he accidentally, when he made that ruling, he was accidentally listening to Volume 1 and not Volume 2, because I was not a fan of Volume 2, and I'll explain why. Because I've been a huge supporter of her, as has Kyle. Tom has not disliked her, but just been a little indifferent to her sound, and he can expound on that later. But it was an opportunity, building off of the first album, to do something a little stronger. Like, you got our ears now, so this is the time to turn it up. I felt like this album, it just felt like leftovers of the first album. And these are EPs, by the way. And the first EP felt like an album. This really felt like an EP. And by that I mean it feels like demos or like songs that they're fully completed songs, but they sound too similar. There's a stretch of it. There are only like 6 or 7 tracks on the thing. And there's a stretch where like 3 of the songs sound exactly the same. That should not be an issue when the running time is that short. It just is too monotonous, doesn't deviate enough from the original sound. And she sounds fine, but there's a difference between singing in a low register and kind of singing low tempo songs and being straight up sleepy time. And this joint was straight up sleepy time. So I was quite disappointed as far as what we know she can do and what we expected. So I'm hoping that we can get a full length release that shows a little bit more diversity in the tracks. But this, I know a lot of people loved it. My cousin was just raving about it earlier today. He thinks it's great, but it just put me to sleep.
I didn't listen to it, guys. Maybe I'll take a listen eventually. Are you surprised I didn't listen to it? But it's almost like one of those things, you know, she's capable of more vocally. You even called her a musical prodigy, and I believe she is. It's just like, come on, stop holding back, give it to us. And you never, listening to the first one, it never got to that point. So it's just too down tempo for me. And I guess I'll listen to it eventually, but I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like we were saying earlier about, I can't remember who we were mentioning earlier, who I felt like was just kind of holding back.
Mario.
When it comes to, yes. And I don't want everybody little mowing it and like hitting the high notes every other second on the track and just like blowing it away. There has to be kind of, if you want a project that's going to be kind of a little bit more mellow, that's cool. But the first album kind of not only had mellow sounding songs, but the beats were different. The way her inflections, they kind of were flowed in and out. And even though, so you had kind of a mellow release overall, the song sounded distinctly different. This, it just sounds like monotone almost, because she's singing in the same register. It's the same kind of sparsely produced production all the way through. It just runs together. And she is capable more of that, because we just heard it like last year. We know she can do better than this. This just felt like old songs that weren't good enough for the first release. And that's why I was disappointed.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one, which is kind of surprising because as I was going into this project, I expected big things for it. And, I mean, it had some good songs on it. I don't want people to take away this podcast thinking this EP was trash. But
Oh, no.
I mean, obviously when I listened to the first project and then I listened to the second one, I knew there was no way she could top the first one. Just how it was presented and just how the first project started out, I knew there was no way. It could have been different, but there was no way it could have been. I mean, it could have still been good, but there was no way it could have been the same. But as I listened to it, I think you're right, Ed. Some of it did sound very demo-ish, like it wasn't finished yet. It was just missing that final touch. And then there were a couple of songs.
And there were more than one song that was like that.
Yeah, and then I think the one thing that annoyed me is on some particular songs, it was like she was trying to bring it back to that traditional R&B, and she was singing a little more on it, and then just midway through the song, the beat would just slow down and it would just turn into a trap song, which sounded great, but when you already have 4 other songs like that, the appeal of it isn't as cool.
Exactly. It lacked the sonic diversity that you need for a project like that. I have no problem with someone having down-tempo songs. I have no problem with kind of singing in low register, but you can't do it at the same tone, at the same pace for like 45 minutes, because if you do that, you are going to be putting people to sleep behind their cars.
Yeah. But my question to you guys is, where does she go from here? So, Volume 1 obviously created the fan base. Volume 2, I'm sure a lot of people like, despite Ed's opinion of it and my opinion of it. But where does she go from here? Like, I don't see how she can do another slowed down volume or EP. Like, I think it might be time for her to switch it up.
Well, first of all, how are the numbers on this one? Have you seen anything?
Not yet. I haven't seen it. It's an EP, so I don't know how that works, because I don't think there's a physical copy of the album out.
Oh, so there's no.
But I'm sure it's streaming well.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see how it's compared to the first one so far. I don't know. I wonder even how this is going to sound live. I mean, can you imagine this as a live show? Forget about the image. I'm just saying the music.
I can see it working as a live show, again, kind of as just a lower tempo kind of, and it's one of those things where she's going to have to throw in some covers or something, because you can't, that's my problem with that second release. You can't have a show for 30 minutes at that level. A show has to have peaks and valleys, like has to have times where it comes up a little bit, and I don't feel like this one ever comes up enough. So I don't know. I'm for volume. First of all, I don't think there should be a volume 3. I always said that I liked her as an original, eye-catching gimmick. Like, okay, who is this? I felt like the next thing should have been her real album of her stepping from behind the shadows, like maybe even literally on the album cover, like her stepping out of the little shadow thing, and then her being who we know she is. So I thought that next album should showcase some of that sound that made her popular, but also show some of the other things she can do. She was performing on BET a couple years ago. We know what she can do. So just take that fan base that you built and step it up. I felt like this was kind of, okay, everybody likes this, so let's give it to them all over again. And you can't, I've talked about this a million times, artists can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, because it's going to get old fast.
Well, I'm looking at Volume 1 and Volume 2 as an album in its entirety. I just don't think people have the attention span to listen to 14 songs straight, so I understood why they put it out like that. But it'll be interesting, and I'm just like visualizing what you just said there. Imagine if Gabby Wilson walks out of her silhouette with a guitar, and everyone's just like, "Oh, it's her. We don't care anymore."
Imagine that.
Well, if she had come out, and it's terrible to say, and it hurts me to say this, but that's the reality we live in. That's why we're talking about Tammy on the Love and Hip Hop doing what she's doing to gather attention. But if Gabby came out just from jump, would she have gotten that buzz? Absolutely not. It would have been the same thing like when I post about these other artists and people are posting them Harpo Who This Man gift that they love to post. Like, listen, this is an opportunity to learn about a new artist. So if you're a fan of the genre, do that. But a lot of listeners are lazy. They ain't gonna do that. So she did the her gimmick to garner attention. It gave a lot of buzz. The music became the selling product and not the artist. And I thought it was a very brilliant thing to do. So now that the music is out front, now this is time for her to not be her and to be who she really is. But instead, we just got more of the ghost lady, and I don't know how that's going to work. I do disagree with your assessment that people aren't attentive enough to listen to a 14-track album. They need to step their attention game up. But if you combine those two EPs, I don't think it makes a good album because it's way too much of the same thing.
Well, we'll see what she has in store for us. I think she's performing at the BET Awards later on this month, and she's going to be on tour with Bryson Tiller next month. So we'll see what happens. And lastly, I have a new project to announce for everyone. You guys are going to be excited about this. It's two of the most popular male R&B artists. They're coming together for a joint mixtape. I'm talking about Chris Brown and Ray J.
And Ray J.
Oh my goodness.
Is this real life or a joke?
It's actually coming out, I
Please
think,
tell
this
me
week.
you're playing.
No, it's coming out this week.
Wait, this is like, you're for real about this?
Oh, yeah.
Chris Brown and Ray J sounds like somebody the Avengers need to be fighting, not somebody that needs to put out music.
Ugh.
So,
Cool.
yeah. And also, Tom says I'm too old to be listening to Chris Brown now. So
I think you've outgrown him like Ed outgrew Ninja Turtles years ago.
First of all, you can never outgrow the Ninja Turtles. I have a Ninja Turtles t-shirt around here somewhere that still gets worn.
Wow.
No, never outgrow the Turtles. But I never grew into Ray J and Chris Brown, so there. I'm kind of with Tom on this one, Kyle. Get over it.
There you have
Well-
it. You got voted down.
So, yeah, that's that. But that got me to thinking. We've been talking about a lot of different male R&B artists throughout this entire podcast. They're all putting out music, and a lot of them, to be honest, are struggling in 2017. But that got me to thinking, what happened to being a sex symbol in R&B? A male sex symbol, when we think of the Ushers, the Genuines. Who else was a sex symbol? Was Keith Sweat considered a sex symbol, Ed?
Of course he was. I mean, you gotta ask my grandma and them about that. But, like, yes, he was.
Remember that
Sexiest
flyer
man
we
alive.
saw? Yep.
But that got me
That
to
flyer
thinking.
told no lies.
Got me thinking.
Listen, I was
guys.
at a concert where women were literally throwing draws at him. He didn't pick it up, though. He walked over to the stage, looked at it, and then walked away.
You must
It was
have
really
a
weird.
Keith Sweat poster with shirtless in your bedroom. Does your wife allow that?
This is a true story.
Uh-oh.
Before I got married, over my bed, I had this gigantic poster of Biggie, and she was like, "When we get married, that's the first thing that's gonna go." And unfortunately, she kept her word.
Jeez.
I had to put it in my office because she was like, "I'm not going to sleep with this man looking over me every night." No, I think it's Biggie. But no, I don't have a shirtless picture of Keith.
Well,
But I mean, to Kyle's point, like, I think sex symbols exist. They just exist in a different way. Every generation's sex symbol is different. You had Keith in the 80s. You had Usher in the 90s. Well, actually, Usher was more 2000. Genuine maybe more in the 90s. Oh no, we had Jodeci with these dudes would wear no shirts and a vest on. So they would just be like a vest like your uncle wear to church with no shirt underneath. So you had them, then you had the Ushers and Genuines, and now we've got Cousin Chris and Ray J, Team STD. That's what we got for sex symbols. So sex symbols are unfortunately an evolving creature, and what's sexy now compared to if you ask the kids in my youth group, is skinny little boys with a whole bunch of tats with weird colored hair. So
that's what I was gonna say though, Ed. Like, you're mentioning Chris Brown and Ray J, but I don't even consider them to be part of this generation. Like Trey, when you look at what he's doing on stage and you compare it to some of the newer guys like a Bryson Tiller or a Weeknd, it's just like it's two different things. Like, I'm looking at these male R&B artists today. They just walk onto the stage with a hoodie, with some jeans, all tatted up, and I think that kind of goes against the description of what R&B is, which is all about love. Here you have some thugged out people, and they're not talking about love anymore, and I think that's really hurting the genre.
Oh, that's long been a issue with the genre. Just listen to this Tank song that made me want to fight. Of all people, and again, about when we say love, I don't mean that you have to be being sappy or anything like that. You can talk about sex, but you don't have to do it so crudely. And that's what I have issue with when we got 45-year-old artists doing that stuff. It just comes off as cheap. But you're right, the love is gone, player. Like, it's gone. And unfortunately, music now, R&B, quote unquote, on mainstream stations, isn't even about love. It's more about, girl, you did me wrong, so forget you. Or, girl, your man ain't doing you right, so you stupid for staying with him, so get with me. Those are pretty much the two themes of the songs. You can thank Drake for that, because he was the one that spearheaded that movement.
That's what I've been saying just about every the past few podcasts. Let's stop calling it even R&B and putting it in the same category as Charlie Wilson, guys. Come on.
You're not going to let that one down, are you, Tom?
I'm serious.
He's not half wrong. The only reason, and I don't want to get into what's R&B and what isn't, because that'll be another 15 minutes. But I mean, the songs, unfortunately, I still categorize them as R&B because of the sound and production and blah blah blah, because that's how I categorize R&B. But the actual content, that content is hip hop, player. The attitude is hip hop, and it's hard to categorize that next to a Charlie Wilson, who is still doing it like he used to do it. And music evolves, so I'm not mad at that evolution, but it's hard to put it in the same category. I do, but I understand why people don't.
Well, here's a question for you guys, and this is a little more sociology than music maybe, but I feel like, I mean, the stage presence, it's not there anymore. Like, there are no superstars, and I think part of that, I'm going to go back to, you know, all these young R&B artists, they're just wearing hoodies now. Like, I remember Michael Jackson had the glove. Usher used to come out with some cool jackets, but, like, them coming on stage with hoodies, it just makes them look like a regular person singing. Do you think that's causing a problem?
You know what it is I'm seeing, though? It's interesting. Like, back in the day, you used to pay for a performance. I think where we're at now in music, it's almost like you're paying to be in the same room as the artist and hear them live. It's not like you're paying for entertainment anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Tom is preaching with that one. Pass the collection plate.
It's weird, though, because it's supposed to be entertainment. I mean, you're getting to hear them sing. They're barely doing that as it is, but it's just so weird.
It depends who you're going to see.
Exactly. So
it's all about star presence, and it's all about, when you talking earlier about The Weeknd and how he's like, no way is that thing a sex symbol. At least he cut the broccoli off his head, or whatever that thing was. But like, it's all about like the experience of being in the presence of a quote unquote star, as opposed to seeing a show. Because when you think of an artist today who's going to give you a show, you got Beyonce, you got Bruno, you got, I guess, Usher, if he's not doing No Limit. But like, there's really people that you can count on one hand that gives you a show. Now, no one can do a show because people can't perform at that level. So you just going to pay money to be in the aura of this quote unquote star. So they don't have to step their game up, because you paying money to see me walk around on stage with what I wore to Walgreens. So Why should they care? They got your money.
I'll take it a step further. Not only are you paying to be in the presence of the star, you're paying to be able to Instagram and Twitter the fact that you were at that show.
Yep.
You know how
You
cool.
were doing the promotion for them, players.
You know how
Yes.
cool that makes you look that you were able to be there and tell all your friends that you were there.
And I
Just
think we
saying.
kind of adapted. I think we kind of adapted that from all that was going on in the EDM world, with like the Calvin Harris and who's another one? I don't even know their names, but I
Don't
think
mention him, please.
come on, the guy's putting out some heat right now.
No,
But
not him. The
you
other
can't-
one,
Who is the other one?
David.
David Guetta. Oh yes,
Jesus.
the guy that single-handedly killed R&B, brought Neo and Usher to like the lowest points in their career. Shout out to
Oh my
David Guetta.
gosh. I don't blame him. I blame them. They know better. But whatever.
You know what though, Ed? I was talking to Tom about this yesterday. We didn't have it so bad when we were in the glow stick and fist pumping era. At least they were still singing. Now we just have people trapping left and right.
Oh, it had it pretty bad, player. No, we did. Don't let today's terrible situation remind you how terrible it was back then. And don't forget about T-Pain. He's the one that I want to say has the heart of R&B in his back pocket. Blame that guy. But don't get me started on your boy T-Pain, because then y'all going to be on my feed. He can actually sing. I know he can sing. That makes him even worse.
Hilarious. Now, just a quick note. I read this on a forum, so I can't confirm whether this is true or not, but we've got some news on the new Justin Timberlake project. Apparently it's going to be like a blues soul album. I don't actually know. It's like a bluesy pop jazz album. That's what they're calling it. Has a Motown influence on it. Nothing straight up country, but a couple of country songs on there. Apparently a duet with Beyonce. And you guys will be excited to know he turned down a future feature.
If this is true, I'll applaud him for that last part.
But-
Looking forward to hearing it, I guess. I mean, we'll see.
I mean, he's one of the artists that is able to just to make the music that he likes. So, and you can tell. So, we'll definitely be looking forward to that one. And I think that pretty much wraps up this week's R&B stuff. Unless Seven Streeter's album gets pushed back again, which I hope it doesn't.
Listen, pushing it back on her birthday is just like the worst thing ever. Just let the girl album drop and get it over with, please.
Yep. Same with Tinashe. I'm tired of hearing about her in the news and all the bad stuff that goes with her. So just let her drop her second album as well. That's been in the works for like 2 years now. But once Seven's
player,
album,
we don't have enough time for me to go off on Tinashe. But I will say this real quick, and I'm going to leave it alone because I know Tom doesn't want us to touch it. But I'm going to say this really quick. Before you go on Twitter, retweeting and sharing and slandering people for the fun of it, I am begging y'all to actually go back and read what the artist said. Because I saw all this Tinashe slander, and because I do this for real, I'm a real journalist, I went and read the article to see what she actually said, and it was not at all what everybody was slandering her about. So what happened was someone took it out of context, Twitter went crazy, and spent the whole day picking on poor Tinashe when she didn't even say... Well, she said what they said, but in a different context. So before you get riled up by Twitter, I'm begging you to go do some research and stop listening to what MJB Fan 847 said. All misspelled.
What fun is reading about the situation before actually commenting on it? That's no fun. It's better to just form a judgment before even knowing what the hell is going on.
yep.
I guess.
Actually, Tom.
I promise you I'm the only person with common sense on Twitter. I am
Tom.
the only person.
Tom, that reminds me. I was on Instagram earlier, and I haven't seen the movie yet, and neither has Ed, so we can't confirm it. But apparently, in the Tupac movie, he's using an iPhone 7.
If anyone has seen the Tupac movie yet, please go into the comments of this post or tweet at us, because I want to know if this is true, because this is too hilarious to be false. Please tell me.
So, I want to get into our Hall of Fame discussion now. Last week we had a pretty controversial discussion about Chris Brown, who I still think should be in the Hall of Fame, but you guys said no. Also, Tamia was not inducted into the Hall of Fame either, so we just got a bunch of Hall of Fame nominees, but no inductions. But we've got 2 more for you guys. And Tom, you know what I just realized? We can't call everyone a Hall of Fame nominee, because
Why?
once we get into like the Rihannas of the world, they're R&B nominees as well.
Wait a
They
second.
aren't nominated, so they can't be a nominee.
Who's nominating those?
Guys, when we're into episode like 67, we're gonna be running short on R&B artists. We're gonna have to, but until then,
I agree when we're nominating Horace Brown and Rihanna, but until
Horace
then,
Brown.
I think we've got a couple left in us that we can talk about. As usual, fan nomination, and then a nomination from us. This time, Ed's gonna be nominating someone, but I want to start off with a fan nomination. This comes from one of our readers who's been asking about this for like a month now, and we're finally getting to it. We're going to be nominating Kelis. Came into the music industry with the Neptunes, with the crazy hair, the screaming songs, and she's pretty much evolved now into sort of like a fashion icon. Influences people in that realm. Actually just put out like a cooking book, from what I understand, a couple of years ago. So Kelis still doing her thing. One of by far the most underrated R&B artists as well. So Kelis, Hall of Fame or no?
Is this serious or is this like a joke?
You tell me.
You just called a child a joke?
I mean, I don't. We didn't even let Monica in. We didn't let Tamia in. We didn't let Faith Evans in, and they want to know if Kelis is getting in? I mean, come on. Sorry. I should.
Tom, give us your reasons why before. Tell us why.
Well,
She should
first,
not be in.
Hold
first
on,
of all,
Tom. Didn't Kelis change the R&B scene with her debut album? It was game changing.
I don't know if I go that far, but again, I'm gonna let Tom go before I go.
well, I mean, I don't think she has. Her first album I like a lot, but I don't think she has any classic albums per se, in my opinion. I mean, she's got some good songs. I'm a big Kelis fan, but I mean, we're talking about Hall of Fame legends. I don't consider her a legend by any means. And plus, she's put her music career on the back burner. I mean, I've never even seen her do a show in all the years I've been covering R&B here in New York. So, yeah, she's a good artist. I like her. She's unique, but come on. This is the Hall of Fame.
Ed?
No boy. To echo what Tom says, yes, I am a big Kelis fan, and I think Kaleidoscope is one of those albums. Her debut album is one of those albums that went unappreciated, but I wouldn't quite say that it was a game changer. It helped. I think it might have been a game changer for the Neptunes, if I can say that, because it showed that and they had, of course, produced R&B well before this album, but it showed that they could do their quirky, bouncy little beats and still be incorporated into R&B and still sound fresh and new. So I think it was a great launching pad for them. But as far as the album itself, I don't feel like the album influenced R&B as much as the Neptunes' work on that album would go on to influence R&B into the 2000s. So when you think of Kelis, most people on the street, you say Kelis, they're going to think of Milkshake. They're going to think of that Tasty album, which again was a good album. But she just has not only has she not had, outside of a couple singles, any long-term impact on the genre, like Tom said, she's been a little too elusive. And I'm one of these people that I'm very much for quality, not quantity. I don't care that an artist has put out 3 albums if the albums are great, as opposed to being like freaking Future that puts out an album every other month and they're all hot garbage. But there's just not enough there, I feel like, to even weigh for an R&B Hall of Fame nomination, because outside of the Tasty album and the Kaleidoscope album, it's pretty weak. She's a solid artist, but when you look at the game changers that we already have in there, it's just not even close. Not in the league. So that's a no for me.
It's a no for me as well. But Ed, you did something really cool, and I don't think you even realized it. But you were describing Khalees's music, and you said "Fresh and New," and that's actually one of her songs, "Young, Fresh and New."
Oh yeah, it is one of her songs. Yes, look at me, killing it even when I'm asleep at the wheel.
So that was pretty cool. Interesting point here, though. She only has one certified album, which was her Tasty album, went gold. All the other albums aren't certified at all.
No, I'm not surprised.
I always felt like her music was more of like for a cult following than actually breaking into the mainstream. Besides when Milkshake broke through, so maybe that's what had to do with it.
Yeah, she's one of those artists, especially in the 90s, that you remember caught out there and those songs being big. But as far as impact on the chart, not really. Like, it didn't blow up like you thought it did. But again, I love her. I think she's a great artist, but not in the conversation of the heavyweights we've been discussing.
But to our friend who recommended her, I will say I am a fan of Kaleidoscope, Wonderland, Khalees Was Here, and Tasty. Believe it or not, I like all those albums. At least some of the songs. So, I mean, I could see why someone would be a big fan, just not Hall of Fame material, unfortunately.
Yeah. I love Tasty and Kaleidoscope. Both were great.
I like how no one. I like how no one mentioned the Flesh Tone album.
I don't even remember the Flesh Tone album. The last one I remember was Food. When was Flesh Tone?
It was like dance music, right? It was it was like the EDM.
Oh, that's probably why it didn't cross my radar.
And just like that, I just realized David Guetta produced on that one as well. So there you go.
The cancer strikes again.
Yeah. And on a last note, this is a fun fact, everyone. So at the You Know I Got Soul office, whenever Tom leaves that office to go grab chicken and I'm the only one in the office, I'll sometimes play Bossy. So.
Oh, you probably sing it and act out the video too, knowing you.
Jeez.
All right, so that is a definite no for Khalees. We love her though. Shout outs to Khalees, and we're on to you, Ed. Who are you nominating this time? Let me guess. Or just kidding.
Now, players, listen. You are not going to make it. We're 50 minutes in. You might not see 60. So, I don't think we've done this artist yet. So, correct the player if I'm wrong. You know, the age stuff. At my age, the memory starts to go. So, step in if we haven't. But, I turned over to my giant wall of CDs because, yes, I still collect those. And one stood out, and I could not believe that we haven't discussed this yet. My nomination is Boyz II Men.
Woo!
We haven't done that one yet?
Now,
no, we haven't.
I don't think we have. And it's crazy because their catalog is insane. They, in my opinion, are the premier artists of the 90s. Their debut was like almost diamond. You've got Two, their second album, which caught my eye. One of the greatest, maybe the greatest R&B album of the 90s. That one went diamond. Then you had some of their kind of like underrated albums. Evolution was very good that people seem to forget. And their fourth album wasn't bad either. Now, if we get into recent releases, things get really suspect because, whoo boy, that Collide album. We can just skip over that. But from front to back, when you talk about one of the most influential artists of all time, some of the greatest vocals of all time, greatest vocalists, some of the classic songs that have come out of that era, artists who defined an era, you don't get any bigger or better than Boyz II Men. To me, they are first ballot, surefire Hall of Famers. So, somebody disagreement with me so they can catch all these hands.
Well, does the fact that their catalog over the past, how long has it been? Over 10 years, 15 years, maybe even. They've done some. They did some cover albums and stuff, and they've had their album recently that came out. You mentioned it, Collide, but realistically, they only had one. Was it Full Circle in 2002, and then that was that was it for. No, they had some other originals. I'm sorry, but have any of them really been that good? Like, has that tarnished them at all? The fact that they haven't had any classics past, say, the early '90s or mid '90s.
I mean, that's a fair question. I don't think it hurts them because when you have an album like 2 on your resume, an album like that monumental, I think that that's enough. Now, there is, you don't want somebody who just kind of one-hit wonders it, and they clearly did not. But they dominated a entire decade, and most people these days can't dominate 6 months. So the work they put in then is enough for 5 or 6 careers. So it doesn't bother me so much that later in their career when they had the roster changes and people bowing in and out of illness and then horrible albums later on, because it doesn't tarnish what they did before. So to me, it doesn't bother me at all.
Oh boy.
So, what?
Are you done, Tom?
Well, I was gonna say, I think they're an obvious yes. I always like to just play the other side of the coin, but yeah, they're in for me.
I don't think they're an obvious yes. I'm going to give them a yes, but here's my thing.
Please tell me why they are not an obvious yes player. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, here's my thing. So I'm only putting them into the Hall of Fame for the same reason that Tony Braxton is in the Hall of Fame. They've had 2 very strong albums. Their debut and their second one. Which I don't think... I mean, if we're looking at numbers, we can call them classics, but I don't think either of them is a classic in terms of quality.
You don't think the second album is a classic?
No.
Ashanti fan.
No.
You don't think that album is a classic? Mr. Still waiting on Mario to release an album. Oh my goodness. Let me get a sip of this water.
Ballads are good on that album. Ballads are very good on that album. Trying Times, one of my favorites off that album. But those up-tempos, boy, no good. No bueno. And then, can we also acknowledge the fact that their burnout rate was faster than anyone I've ever seen? 1997, the Evolution album, that's not a good album. Was that a good album? I mean, it was okay, but I don't think it was great by any stretch. And then the albums after...
It wasn't as good as 2, but that's the Thriller effect. Like, once you put out a Thriller, everything is going to be like, well, it's not Thriller. It's the Illmatic effect. Nothing is not as good as Illmatic, but what is? It was a fine album. I liked Evolution.
It sounded like...
That's the one with Doing Just Fine, right?
Yeah, but there were some songs on there that sounded like a very cheap version of 112.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Which isn't bad, but, like... They're the influencers, yet they sound like the influenced.
Well, I can give you that because that's really an issue a lot of kind of maturing artists start to have. They start trying to sound like everybody else. And that's Tank. We was talking about that earlier.
And then from what I remember on that Evolution album, wasn't like the first half ballads, which is what everyone listened to, and then once you got to the second half of it where the up-tempos happened, you just like didn't bother to listen to it anymore? Or was that just me?
I do remember, I'm like looking at the track list, and a lot of these are ballads up at the top.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you might be right. But again, the album is still solid. I don't know where we're getting at this.
Same deal with the second album. First half was okay. It was only the second half that saved it.
I have never heard a human being say that the Boyz II Men's second album was okay. My God.
And how many classics does Chris Brown have, Kyle?
Please let me know.
Hey guys, we talked about Chris Brown last week. We don't need to go back to that. But let's continue on with their discography. Wasn't the Nathan, Michael, Sean, and Wanya album like the biggest disappointment known to mankind?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't great, but again, it wasn't horrid. We didn't start getting to the bad albums. See, I got to pull up their discography because we didn't start getting to the bad albums till more recently.
Okay. So, I just wanted to bring that up. I felt like they started off strong and they had definite classics. You can't even deny that. They have a lot of classics under their belt, but it wasn't as strong as people make it out to be in terms of their discography.
Oh my
That's all I'm saying.
gosh. Well, you go back and listen to Ashanti Chapter 2, since you don't like Boyz II Men's 2 album, and tell me which one is better.
Actually,
All Baby is better than Water Runs Dry. Oh my god.
Actually, I think Ashanti wrote a song tributed to Boyz II Men on that Chapter 2 album. Do you know which song?
Please enlighten me to this song.
1 minute you're here, the next you're going.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I love
I
Boyz.
cannot. I
do like
can't
Boyz II
wait
Men.
until your mentions are burned down. You think Tinashe got it bad last week?
Ooh wee. Well, shout outs to all the listeners. But anyway, Boyz II Men. I would like to say that I did give them a yes because I do like a lot of their songs. But anyways, they are in the Hall of Fame. So congratulations to the Boyz II Men for making it into the Hall of Fame. And who is the other one? Khalees. Yeah, we're sorry, Khalees. You're now known as a Hall of Fame nominee, but you're not being inducted, unfortunately.
Khalees is cooking Sunday dinner right now. She ain't want to music.
Do we have time to get into Ed's love letter, or are we done for the week?
I think we're out of time.
Well,
We'll get to it next week.
Well, just being
We will
honest, I
get-
didn't have one prepared anyway, so.
no, okay.
Oh gosh.
And I guess it's kind of my fault for trashing Boyz II Men's discography, but I know there will be someone out there that will agree with me. There must be someone
Well,
out
there
there.
are people out there that think Chris Brown should be in the Hall of Fame too. I don't know why they're walking the streets and not in a mental institution, but there you go.
Well, so we're gonna have to continue this next week, but before we get out of here, Ed, what's going on with SoulInStereo.com?
Well, we talked about love letters earlier on, and yes, I have a new love letters column up. So folks will give me a hard time about not getting to their questions. I'm gonna get to them. Give me a chance. I got a bunch of them I know, so I'm starting to whittle away. We got one of those up. And I also, for my hip-hop fans, a review of Big Boy's most recent album, his third solo album. I was a little disappointed in it, but shout out to Big Boy, because even though my review, which I always feel are fair, it wasn't the most glowing review, he still liked it and shared it. So shout out to artists who are not insecure in their music and can take some constructive criticism, because clearly he could. And good for him, because I'm a huge fan and I let that show in my review. And I think Big Boy fans should check out the album. But unfortunately, it's not as strong as you would have hoped. And check out the site this coming week, because we'll have more reviews on the way.
Cool. Tom, what's going on with You Know I Got So? I know you did an interview recently.
I interviewed Adrian Marcel this week. We tried to do it inside a building. I had picked out a public space in New York, but the security guard kicked us out. So we just had to do it in the middle of the streets of New York, and it was pretty cool, actually. And he actually performed.
Oh, yeah.
He performed in the middle of the street, too, with his guitar player. And no one really stopped to pay attention. Someone even mentioned that in the comment. But that's New York for you. That's a whole different story. But it was pretty cool. Adrian Marcel is a good guy. Other than that, I was excited to have some new music this week. Remember last week I was bored, so hopefully we continue in that direction. Other than that, anything you got going out there in Canada?
Well, I just want to add that after this podcast, I'm going to reach out to and we're going to get Mike from Boyz II Men on this podcast so we can talk about the discography. I think he'll side with me, but until then, I think we're out of here.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, please get out of here before I throw you out of here, like Uncle Phil throws Jazz out of the house.
All right, we're out of here. Peace.
Peace.
Later. 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 Later.